In this video I will comment systematically the first 3 paragraphs of the introduction to the Encyclopedia of the Philosophical Sciences. I have already started to comment systematically the preface of the Phenomenology of Spirit. You can find this in the playlists of this channel. The beginning of the preface of the Science of Logic. You can find this on the playlist of this channel. And now I will comment the beginning of the introduction. So the first 3 paragraphs. I do not comment word by word, I just extract the ideas. What is philosophy? First, philosophy, contrarily to all other sciences or modes of knowledge, cannot presuppose its objects. So what is the object of philosophy is already a philosophical question. And philosophy cannot presuppose its method of knowledge. Hegel says somewhere that mathematicians believe that there is space for geometry and quantity, a number, a unity for arithmetic, etc., algebra, etc. The physicists, they presuppose that there is indeed a physical world with there is time, space, matter, energy. They take this for granted. Maybe they are wrong. I don't know. But Hegel says that philosophy and the physicists use deductive reasoning, induction. They have a method, a scientific method, observation, hypothesis, experiment. They use mathematics as a tool, etc., etc. And Hegel says philosophy cannot presuppose any object. There are philosophers who have doubted the existence of the physical world and cannot presuppose any method. There are philosophers who have tried to replicate the rigorous deductive aspect of mathematics, but Hegel says that philosophy eventually has to be the foundation of every mode of knowledge. Philosophy has to say what is knowledge, how can we know, what is the method. So philosophy has to be the foundation of everything, basically. Okay. But then Hegel says that the objects of philosophy, or the object, because there is only one, the object of philosophy is in common with religion. The object of philosophy is truth, which we call God. So this book and this book, but every other religious book, they have the same object in common. But what differentiates them? Hegel will explain later. And also the objects of philosophy are the realm of the finite, because truth is infinite, but the finite is what we call nature, the world of time, space, matter, energy, the forces, the laws of nature, etc., and mind or consciousness, namely the consciousness of humans, which is in relation to another, to nature, to thoughts, representation, other minds, etc., etc. This is the realm of the finite. But Hegel says that truth is infinite because God is only in relation to himself. God is only for God, so to speak. So, yeah. And then it says that consciousness, which is the relationship between the self and the object, I am aware of another. And self-consciousness is I am aware of myself. And reason is I am aware of the other as being myself. I have summed up Hegel in 20 seconds. He says that consciousness makes representations of objects, images, if you will, before making concepts. And he says that the mind, the consciousness, access the realm of knowledge through the mediation of representation. First, we have images, representations, intuitions. An intuition in ordinary language is some sort of immediate cognitive knowledge, vague knowledge. It's partly true, but in the terminology of German philosophy, intuition is unshown. It's immediate sensuous presence. I have the intuition of this book because it is immediately present. And the word intuition in ordinary language is kind of derived from this from this philosophical meaning in the sense that when we say I have the intuition, it means I feel with my consciousness, with my mind, something immediately, but it's vague. But actually, intuition means direct presence of the object. Okay. And also, thought transforms what is contingent into what is necessary. Things, if I take this pen, it falls. If I take this again, it falls in a different way. That the way it fell is contingent, although strictly speaking, a physicist would say, no, it's determined. But what I mean is that, is it contingent that if I drop this pen, it falls? No, because the physicist would say there is a necessity, namely the mass of the pen and the attraction of the earth, and that which we call gravity, which makes that if I do not hold this pen, if I let it go, it will fall to the ground because it will be attracted by the curvature of space-time. Modern physicists say that which we call gravity. And the physicists make very developed and complex theory to explain why it is necessary that if I drop the pen, it shall fall. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that was the first paragraph. 6 minutes and 30. Now I will comment the second paragraph. So, philosophy is a thinking manner, a thinking way of considering objects. What differentiates humans from animals is that humans can think. Humans are animals, but animals who can think, and it will be shown in the logical process and the philosophical process that thinking is self-consciousness. When I say I am, I is thought. It's not me as an empirical individual as we see it. When I say I, it is what Kant would call the transcendental ego. I am, me, myself. Animals can have intelligence. They can have a learning ability. Dolphins are very intelligent. Monkeys can be intelligent. Dogs can be intelligent. They can be trained. They are very intelligent species, but there is no animal except the human animal who can say I. A parrot can say I, but he doesn't think of himself as a self-consciousness. And it is through the mediation of the self, say I am, that the human animal, the human animal becomes really human through thought. So what is the characteristic, the essential feature, the fundamental determination of man is that he is a thinking consciousness. A thinking, because consciousness is thought, and so man thinks. That's why, strictly speaking, people who say, but do mushrooms or plants have a consciousness? Do dogs and monkeys, except the human monkey, have a consciousness? Strictly speaking, no. They have an awareness, they may have a soul, but no self-consciousness. So only man, only humans can think. And Hegel says there is only one thought. It will show because there's only one being and there's only one thought, and this is what we call God. So the thought of God is the truth because there is only one truth. And yeah. Hegel says then that feeling, which is an internal determination, we feel modifications within ourselves. We distinguish the inner and the outer, and we feel good, we feel bad, positive, negative emotions, etc., etc. So we have feelings, intuitions, namely spatially determined objects. I have the intuition of the book because I see the book immediately. If I think about what a book is, how a book is produced, the purpose it serves, I do not see the book. I think about the book. So that's already a thought, but I use representations. I imagine a printing press, paper, the author, the manager of the publishing house. So I have still representation, but when I try to determine what is a book, I am already in the realm of thought, in a way. Then we have representation. So feeling, intuition, representation are various forms of becoming conscious of the same content, which is being. Philosophy will prove that there is one content, which is being. And philosophy consists in transforming these various modes of representation, forms of becoming conscious of the content, into thoughts. So philosophy transforms feelings, intuitions, representations, etc. into thoughts. Then human beings have religion, law, and morality, and eventually art and philosophy, and animals do not. Animals have no religion. Atheists have no religion either. So maybe we should stop the... we should not treat the atheists too harshly, because from a philosophical standpoint, they are just animals. That's a tasteless joke, a tasteless Hegelian joke. But even an atheist, more seriously, an atheist, he has no religion, but he has a thought because he knows himself to be an atheist. So the absence of religion is already the presence of the knowledge of religion. So that's also very Hegelian, that if you negate religion, that's still a religious determination. So yeah, so humans have religion, law, and morality. Animals have no law, no morality, no religion, and no art, and no philosophy. Hegel says reflection means basically thinking. To reflect upon something means to mediate the object. I have this book. I can reflect by commenting the book and thinking about the book, but if I reflect upon the book as an object, I can think that this is made of atoms which are held together by the electromagnetic force, and that it has a mass which is contained in the core of the protons, I guess, which give this book a mass. The molecules of ink give its colors, the color is reflected in my eyes, etc. If I talk about this object as a purely physical object, the atomic, molecular properties of the object, the forces which are being made manifest, etc., and how it is reflected into my eyes and eventually into my brain, which produces the image of the book, I am reflecting upon the book. So I transform the immediate presence of the book into a thought. This immediate book that you see from a physical perspective is made of void and very small particles. It's empty. If I wanted to make a joke, I'd say this is the emptiest book, one of the emptiest books ever, because there is nothing in it. I'm sorry. Sometimes my philosophical jokes are just too funny. So yeah, but from a strictly physical standpoint, this is made of very small particles and 99% of void and emptiness, the void between the atoms and the electrons. But yeah, that's a reflection. So Hegel would say, yeah, but if you reflect upon this book as a strictly philosophical object, you have the book and you have the thought of the book, which is very different from the book. And now you have to reconcile the two, the immediacy and the mediation of thought. The physical perspective on the book. And speculative thinking consists in reuniting the immediate and the mediation. I have explained Hegel in 15 seconds. Okay. So by reflecting, we transform the content into thought. That's what physicists do. A modern theoretical physicist would say that the sky, the ground, the buildings, the mountains, the rivers, they are manifestations of the four fundamental forces of physics. They are phenomena made manifest, but actually the modern theoretical physicists would say there are only four fundamental forces. And then they ask the question of, but where does consciousness emerge? How does it emerge? Etc., etc. So there is a difference between feeling and feelings. Feeling of, I mean, the act of feeling. It's not really strictly speaking an act because it's not done consciously, but the fact of feeling. So feeling and feelings, the various feelings that we experience, and representations. There's a difference between feelings and representation, and to have thoughts about feelings. What makes me feel good? What makes me feel bad? What do I mean when I think in terms of representation about this or that, etc., etc. These thoughts on feelings and representations and images are, sorry, I'm kind of confusing myself, but it's very structured, I will explain. Feelings and representation are immediacy. When we think about feelings, representations, images, we reflect, which means we mediate. There is a second movement, that which I have explained with the book and the physical consideration of the book. So we're then in the realm of reflection, and then we reason. The physicists make deductions, inductions, hypotheses. They reason, they use logic. So, but Hegel says, then we have to go beyond immediacy, beyond mediation, and this beyond is philosophy, which is not rationalistic, reflective thinking, but rational in the sense of vernünftig. The physicists are in the realm of der Verstand, which is rationalistic in a way, the understanding, and philosopher, Hegel says, go beyond in the realm of vernünftig, which means rational, and speculative, which is another word for mystical. And Hegel says reflection, so transforming the immediacy of object, is a first step. It is the path which leads to the truth, to what is eternal. Transitory objects flee, they become, they decay, they come and go, they come into being, they go back into nothing, they disappear, they vanish. But the thought about them is immaterial, and in a sense it is eternal, it is true. And that's what Hegel said, that we can only know God, the real God, cognitively through an intellectual process. And then, to illustrate, Hegel says that, I will take an example. Here I have a grapefruit and a piece of grapefruit. And Hegel says to distinguish between immediacy and reflection, if I want to eat this piece of grapefruit, there are two ways. Either I eat the piece of fruit and then eventually I reflect about what this might be, or if I want it to be annoying, I would say, wait, you first have to reflect. And here's what a reflection on this would look like. First, you have to study the chemical properties of this. The book has 1,000 pages. So you have to read 1,000 pages in order to understand the chemical composition of the fruit. And then you might eat the fruit. But actually no, because that's not everything. You also have to study the biological constitution of this fruit, and the entire history of biology in this compendium, 1,200 pages basically. So you have to read this also. But that's not all. You would also have to study vegetal biology, because there's biology and then there's a particular branch of biology which concerns itself with organic, vegetative, not vegetables, also vegetables, but plants, basically. So you would have to study this also. Thank God it's shorter. So maybe, yeah. And then that's not enough. You would still have to study zoology, because you are an animal, and you are an animal who wants to eat this piece of fruit. So you would also have to study yourself as an animal to understand your biological determinations. And then you would also have to study anatomy and physiology, because humans are a particular type of animals, and you would have to study how the digestive process functions, the chemical reactions within your stomach, how your teeth, your tongue, etc. function in order to eat this fruit. So you would spend many months, maybe many years, and you will have starved to death before eating this. So that's an illustration. So that's why maybe we should just begin with immediacy, and then only after we can reflect. That's an illustration. And another illustration, it's in the logic. I think Hegel says that when we think as human beings, we use unconsciously logic. We all use reasoning and logic. But we do this unconsciously, like when we do eat this, we digest unconsciously the fruit, but we do not know the totality of all the laws of chemistry, biology, zoology, anatomy, physiology. It is done unconsciously. And when we think and when we speak, we use grammar unconsciously and we use logic unconsciously. But do we speak correctly? I know myself that when I speak English, I certainly do not speak correctly in terms of vocabulary, grammar, etc., because English is not my native language as an empirical individual. And even when I do speak French, which is my native language as an empirical individual, I do make mistakes sometimes because it's a very complicated language and there are subtleties. Only a trained expert in grammar can know his own language. And sometimes grammar is so complex that even at this moment you make mistakes and errors. And in the realm of logic, we all think that we spontaneously possess logic, but do we reason logically? And is our logic valid? Hegel would say no. And then he uses the example of someone who would want to learn how to swim theoretically before going into the water, into the sea. But it is only by going into a swimming pool or into a water or into the sea or into the ocean that you have to actually learn how to swim. And then you can go out of the water and study physiology, anatomy, physics to determine the weight of your body in relation to the waves or the sea, how you float or you sink, etc. Then you can do that and reflect upon this. But first you have to jump into the water. And this is philosophy for Hegel. You have first to go into the content and then reflect upon the content. But then Hegel says the singular, the personal experience, that's worthless. So Hegel contradicts himself. And honestly, this is kind of annoying, but I try to accept Hegel in spite of his flaws. And then I would say, Hegel has no flaws, he's perfect. Maybe someday people will understand why I burst into laughter with my speculative jokes. I don't know. Okay. So, now, third paragraph. The content of consciousness. Hegel says there's only one content, which is being. The content of consciousness is feelings, intuitions, images, goals, or purposes, duties. We have purposes. My purpose by making this video is to make Hegel's philosophy intelligible. So, and why do I have this purpose? Because I want to share my ideas. Why do I want to share my ideas? Because I feel guilty. Why do I feel guilty? That's a long story. And then, so feelings, intuition, images, goals, duties, thoughts and concepts, etc., etc. But then we have a very important, an essential, fundamental determination that what we call concept in our ordinary consciousness, notion or concept, and what Hegel calls concept, der Begriff, are very different. What we call concepts is what Hegel calls thought determinations. What is this? Grapefruit. It's a fruit, a particular type of fruit. What is a fruit? It's an organism. It's a biological object. It's a body. It's a determination of it's a physical body. It's a quantitative determination of space-time, etc., etc. If I wanted to grasp the concept of this grapefruit, I would have to determine the biological, chemical, physical, and eventually mathematical, because physics presuppose time and space, which are geometrical structures in a way, and logic eventually, so I would have to elevate myself into the realm of thought, and that would be concepts. But Hegel says a concept for him, which is one of the most important and most difficult concept to grasp, is self-moving thought. It is a self-movement which differentiates itself from itself, and from this self-initiated difference grasps itself, conceptualizes itself, and become one with itself again, reestablishes identity. So the concept for Hegel is the identity which produces difference and reestablish identity. I simplify. But another way of expressing in a more determined way, the concept for Hegel is the human mind, the human being with the singularity, particularities, and universality. So I am the concept because my mind is universal. I have particularities, European, male, 29 years old, and I have a singular self, the individual that you see and with my personal psychology and that you don't know. I only know partly my singularity. So this three in one aspect, singular, particular, universal, is the concept, and this is what Hegel calls God. And every human is made in the image of God because every human is a living concept. But yeah, he doesn't talk about this in the introduction. Maybe he should have, because if he had done this, it would have prevented me a lot of trouble and a lot of effort. But then Hegel would say, yeah, but that's the patience and the suffering of the negative, that's part of the process. So these feelings, intuitions, images, goals, duties, thoughts, and eventually concept are various forms of the same content, because there is only one content, which is being. There's one being, one content, one thought, one truth, God. That's, yeah. So philosophy turns representations into thoughts, into categories, and eventually into concepts, as Hegel envisioned the word concept. He says that representations are metaphors of thoughts. In this book, the Bible, in every religious book or traditions, there are images, representations, and in a book like this, there are the thoughts, the concepts about these metaphors and these representations. And the difficulty, says Hegel, is to determine what thought corresponds to what concept and what representation corresponds to what concept. And this is why philosophy is thought to be unintelligible. Because philosophy is the realm, the real philosophy, is the realm of pure thought, so pure abstraction. But abstraction from what? From the empirical content. So it's an abstraction, but it's not disconnected completely, not at all actually, because the immediate content that we perceive, that we experience, inwardly or outwardly, is the manifestation of the intellectual, purely abstract content. That's why I have made videos to try to illustrate very complex philosophical concepts and categories to make them intelligible. But this difficulty, this unintelligibility, is simply due to a lack of habit, says Hegel. If I say this fruit is orange, it is not an orange, it's a grapefruit, but it is orange, the color is orange. If I say this fruit is orange, I have already the category of singularity, this is a singular fruit, the category of being, when I say this fruit is orange, what is being, and universality. Because orange is a color which goes beyond this singular object. The title of this book is written in orange. So I have orange here, orange there. It is universal in the sense that it goes beyond the singularities. So if I say this fruit is orange, I have already the category of singularity, being, universality. But where do these categories come from? And the thinking consideration of these categories is ontology, metaphysics, logic, etc., etc. So life, I guess, is kind of a movement between immediacy, elevation into the realm of thought, then we come back down to the realm of immediacy, and it's a constant dialogue between immediacy and mediation and the unity of both through speculative philosophy. And when we elevate ourselves in the realm of pure thought, pure abstraction, we can get lost, as I have experienced. So, yeah, that's what I could say about the first 3 paragraphs in 30 minutes, basically. So, maybe I will continue to try to make this intelligible, but I have expressed what I thought might help you understand. So now if you pick up this book in whatever language seems appropriate for you, you will understand the beginning. Yeah, that's what I could do.